Ah yes, style, the elusive Moby Dick of the art world. A rare gift bestowed upon only a lucky few, like a unicorn sighting, or finding clothes that actually fit you without having to look in the children's section. But what if I told you that you too can develop your own cohesive style in just 3 steps? Why, that would be the bee's knees, you exclaim into your phone and/or computer monitor. The 3 steps or categories that you'll be taking part in during your stylistic journey are as follows: realism, emulation, and imagination. Realism is arguably the most important of these 3, as reality is the source from which every iconic style is derived from. Realism is the foundation that your style will be built on top of. And don't worry if you don't have access to traditional art classes or life drawing sessions. Drawing from images is also fine. Even small and grainy images are usable, so long as you're paying attention to what you're doing and understand what it is that you're trying to study. And this isn't limited to the human figure, by the way. So long as it's something real, you're studying realism. These are a few of my own figure studies done over the years. My artistic focus is on character design, so naturally 90% of my studies are going to involve the human figure. Provided that you have at least a basic understanding of your fundamentals, it's perfectly fine to explore more stylistic depictions of things, but as I touched on in my video on reference, you'll need a strong understanding of what something actually looks like before it can be stylized. The next stage is emulation. This is the stage where you'll be identifying what specific artists you look up to and why. Perhaps you like the way a particular artist draws eyes, ears, or feet. Maybe you like the look of their brushstrokes or the colors they use. There's a reason I've called this step emulation instead of imitation. You're not merely copying your favorite artists as much as you're reverse engineering their work to discover how they created the finished product. I'm a big advocate of using tracing as a learning tool, as it'll help you pick up on structural nuances and identify patterns when it comes to the sorts of shapes an artist chooses to use. It's important to remember that nothing is wholly original. Imitation and emulation is a natural part of the process. I personally like to do anatomical breakdowns of an artist's work, as well as identify things like perspective and form, before eventually doing my own freehand copy of the drawing to the best of my ability. And finally, the step you've all been waiting for, imaginative drawing is where you'll be putting all these different studies to the test. These drawings don't have to be purely from your head either. Feel free to still use PhotoRef. At the imagination stage, you're essentially taking everything you've learned from realism and emulation, putting them in a spooky witch's cauldron, and giving it a good stir until you arrive at your desired result. And that may require you to explore a number of different combinations. You'll be continuously switching between these 3 categories, as style is a never-ending process, and is something that will naturally change over time. Picasso is a rather dramatic example of this, but the point here is that style shouldn't be thought of as a static thing. It's going to change as your artistic tastes and sensibilities change over a lifetime. Maybe you already have a good idea of where you're headed and what your artistic goals are, or maybe you have no idea what you're doing, in which case constant iteration will help push you in the right direction. Even something as minor as changing the brush you use changes your style in a sense, but it's something that should still be recognizable across different mediums. While it is true that style is something that develops naturally over time with enough practice, and is something that shouldn't be forced, it's also important to have a proactive approach to your creative process. Ask yourself questions. What makes this artist's work appealing? Is your style as appealing as theirs? Why or why not? What kind of subject matter do you enjoy drawing? Maybe you're more attracted to rendered painting over line art. Are there particular clothes, hairstyles, plants, or vehicles that stand out to you? What kind of story are you trying to tell? Maybe you have an affinity for the horror genre. Or maybe you would rather draw cutesy, pink, fluffy things. Or maybe you enjoy both. Get weird with it. You'll have to strike a balance between making conscious choices and letting your unconscious mind just kinda do its own thing. If we were to compare realism to learning the alphabet along with basic grammar, then emulation would be like learning to string sentences together using words and phrases you already know. Attempting to draw the images in your mind would be like using the written word more creatively, such as writing poetry or pages of a novel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video, whenever that comes out. I don't like rushing these things.